He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai whakarongo mai ki te Aotai Whenua. Lovely to have you with us for another episode of Country Life. I'm Janina Schwanecker.
G'day, I'm Duncan Smith. Today, some tips on selling wine to China. We meet a New Zealand wine grower who's building bridges between vineyards here and consumers in the country of her birth.
I introduce you to one of 3 young agri-leaders off to Australia for a shot at a Trans-Tasman Award. He's an old acquaintance of the show.
And in our feature story, Cosmo meets a farming couple in Southland who make health products from the hemp they grow.
But first, a look at what's been making headlines on the Rural News Desk this week. Fonterra dairy farmers will be able to earn cash for their climate efforts, starting on the 1st of June. The dairy co-op has announced it will pay an extra 1 to 5 cents a kilogram of milk solids to farms that meet climate criteria, and even more for some farms. The cooperative estimates more than 5,000 farms will be eligible for a bonus next season, based on last season's data. Here's Fonterra's Director of Sustainability, Charlotte Rutherford.
As new novel technology comes on board, that will help farmers that adopt it to get access to both the cooperative difference payment and the customer incentive payment. And so we're pretty excited about how those two will interact. The other aspect of that is the On-Farm Solutions program, which is funded by customers, will set up the framework that will help us accelerate adoption at scale of new technologies that come on board, whether it be methane inhibitors or boluses or other tools that can help farmers in that space.
The latest Federated Farmers Confidence Survey has found farmer confidence has risen to its highest level in nearly a decade. The survey, done in January, found morale has jumped from minus 0.66% in July last year to a positive score of 2%. It's the biggest lift since the question was introduced in 2016. President Wayne Langford says it's likely been driven by falling interest rates, rising incomes and more favourable farming rules. There have also been good dairy payouts and beef prices, as well as improving sheep and wool prices.
I thought it was great to see the number of farmers that thought they were coming back into profitability. That is a really good result, because there's nothing worse than doing this job for free or potentially making a loss. And so that's great to see, and it's great to see farmers being able to cash in on the way that the markets are beginning to respond. Ultimately, there will be more money in the bank, and that will see more money being spent in rural communities, more rural debt being paid off, and ultimately a greater result for the New Zealand economy.
The survey has also found the number of farmers making a profit has doubled since the last survey, with 54% now reporting a profit and 31% expecting improvement over the next year.
Meanwhile, farmers in parts of the North Island are pushing for an adverse weather event to be declared in their regions after significant periods with no rainfall. Groups have met in South Auckland, Waikato and Taranaki to discuss applying for the declaration, which would open up funding. Federated Farmers Waikato President Keith Holmes says farmers are making changes to try and get by.
People have been feeding out quite in a big way just to keep the production going and to offset the fact that the grass has dried up and the feed's not there. Probably now, in retrospect, a lot of the dairy farmers have kept cows on for too long, just trying to get that extra production.
The Ministry for Primary Industries says they're keeping a close eye on the situation.
New research digging into the genetic makeup of working farm dogs is aiming to hunt out potential diseases. Right Dog for the Job is a 3-year project led by Massey University. Genome sequencing has been done on nearly 250 dogs, including hunterways, heading dogs and crossbreeds. The lead researcher, Professor Matt Littlejohn, says the study compares genetic variants in overseas dogs with those of New Zealand dogs and aims to help avoid genetic diseases and improve desirable traits.
The project has very much been focused on those 2 breeds, the heading dog and the hunterway. They're quite unique in the world, and in New Zealand they're actually quite common, so both those breeds are in the top 5 most common dog breeds, but not really found outside of New Zealand. If you look at other dog breeds internationally, there's been huge genetic studies that have characterised what are the diseases that these dogs have and what causes those diseases, but that information doesn't really exist for our dogs.
Concerns about the lack of midwives in remote areas have sparked a call for midwife spouses to be given job opportunities too. Last year, the College of Midwives estimated there was a 40% shortfall of midwives across the country. Emma Billows has been a rural midwife for 30 years, and she says country couples are bearing the brunt of the shortage.
I think perhaps if we maybe considered a slightly different approach where we built policy from that met the rural needs first and then built it back into the centre, what we would see is we would see some different emphasis in our policy and make sure that we haven't got health, sort of health structures that leave gaps for rural people.
Dairy farmers are being encouraged to consider using a magnetic strip for feed mixes to prevent cow fatalities from metal which finds its way into their feed. They can come off machinery, fencing wire or broken equipment. Ashburton dairy farmer Craig Hickman decided to trial a magnetic strip at the bottom of his feed containers.
6 milkings later, I checked it, and the first thing I pulled out was a whopping great hunk of metal. Now, when I say whopping great hunk, I don't mean the size of a bolt or anything that's going to cause damage to machinery, but it was a fairly long sliver of sharp steel. And the problem with something like that, of course, is it can perforate a cow's gut.
And finally, the Broadwood Sheepdog Trial Club is celebrating 100 years of the club at their annual trial taking place this week. We're told it's a great little club in the heart of the far north with a bunch of amazing volunteers.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
Our guest this week is someone already familiar to the Country Life team. The last time we caught up with Hamish Best, he was still at Massey University, studying towards an honours in agri-science. Here he is from nearly 15 years ago.
Hi, my name's Hamish Best. I'm a fourth year honours student. I did my undergraduate as a Bachelor of Science, majoring in agricultural science, and now I'm doing honours in agricultural science with my research project of lamb finishing on plantain.
These days, he's running Conscious Valley and helping provide Wellingtonians with direct-to-market red meat from his Ohariu Valley farm. We're parked up in the side-by-side, dog team panting on the back after a day's work, looking out over the Cook Strait from the top of the farm. I asked Hamish what he's been up to since.
After that, finished my honours, and then I went up to Hawke's Bay and did 3.5 years for Agricom as the Eastern North Island sales manager. So wholesale seed production, seed sales, and then went on to work for PGG Wrightson's as a agronomist, effectively down in Central Hawke's Bay, working with a lot of farmers and basically doing all their cropping inputs and trying to help them achieve the best possible yields for their farm systems. And then had a real big change and moved to Melbourne. That job was working in product development for Auswest and SPS Seeds, which effectively is Agricom over in Australia. And it was sort of like the technical component of marketing plus commercialising new products and internal and external sort of staff training.
And what was it that eventually brought you home to the family farm here in Wellington?
I've always had a drive to want to go back farming. I wanted to be a farmer, but had some sage advice from my parents to go and learn a skill, learn a trade, or learn something, just in case farming didn't work out. But I've always had that urge and that internal desire to come back farming. And now that I'm doing it, I just couldn't think of anything else, really. Like, being your own boss and running a farm is just, I live the dream every day.
Can you tell me a little bit about the property itself? We're sitting here parked up in the side-by-side and you've got an amazing view over looking to the South Island. The water is just this most beautiful blue, and on a day like this I can imagine this is just pure bliss. What's the rest of the farm like?
Yeah, it's bliss. This is like a good day in the office, really. No wind, the turbines are just turning over. So we're a 420 hectare steep hill country farm. We run 1,600 ewes plus our replacements, and we mate some of our hoggets if they reach an acceptable weight of 45 kilos. Of that 420 hectares, about say 100 hectares is broken scrub, or there's a 20 hectare block which is reverting back to native. And then the rest of the farm that we can get a tractor on, I'm in the process of putting into through a winter oats crop, wintering using some cattle on as that little buffer pre-lambing to let the grass get away. And then after the oats, it goes into lucerne. We're going to have about 45 hectares of lucerne in total, which will be roughly 15% of our, grazable area. And for us, that's just an absolute game changer because we're able to finish nearly all of our lambs, even though we do get typically very dry in the summertime.
Tell me a little bit about that. So you're sixth generation and you've taken over the family farm about 2 years ago.
Yep.
And you're running Conscious Valley. Can you tell me a little bit about the ethos and the drive behind that?
Yeah, so Conscious Valley was an idea that came to me when I was living in Melbourne through the COVID pandemic. So we were one of the most locked down cities in the world then, and one thing that I really noticed in the supermarkets was that the meat was just cleared off the shelves. The local butchery had a queue a mile long, so it gave me faith that people still enjoyed good quality meat. And I thought, being where we are, 8 kilometres as the Kaka flies from our farm to the city, we're the closest red meat farm to the city, and I think that with a population of, say, 500,000 people, the Ohariu sort of Makara catchment doesn't have enough lamb to feed Wellington, let alone be exporting it overseas. So the main driver for me was to have local people eating local meat. I personally think that the meat here has a unique flavour. We're sitting here looking at the Cook Strait on a very calm day, but on a windy day you can't even see the South Island because of the salt haze. And with the amount of fencing that I do, there's a lot of salt that gets dusted onto this property, and I think that has an effect on the pasture species that are grown, and we have this beautiful, unique, quite sweet tasting meat. And so I want Wellingtonians to enjoy that and savour it.
Pretty special to be able to have that direct access through to your consumers as well, to be able to share your story with them down at the Sunday markets, is that right?
Yeah, it's so cool. I underestimated how motivating and how joyful it would be selling meat at the markets, because every week you're getting a thank you from your regular customers who are enjoying this delicious meal that they're cherishing, that we work all year round to produce. And so I count myself as a very lucky farmer to be able to have that interaction with the end user.
When we last caught up with you, you were a student, and I think one of the questions you were asked was kind of, where you saw yourself heading or what the next few years would bring. Looking back, is this something you would have expected? And
what did I say?
We can go and find out.
What do you see yourself doing in 5 or 10 years?
At the end of the year, I'd be happy to get a job in the agriculture support industry, mainly in the agronomy area. Companies like PGG Wrightson's or Landcorp or Elders and Pioneer, something like that, and then move my way up to a higher role in those companies. And then 10 to probably 15 years, I'd like to try and get into farm ownership and run my own place and get it humming along in the top 5% in the country. That's probably my big goal.
Sounds like you've done quite well. Everything's on track?
Yeah, sounds like I have done what I wanted to do. That's pretty cool. Looking back at the 21-year-old self saying those things and then having achieved those things is pretty cool, and I guess I've got to reset those.
Yeah, you've got to figure out what's next, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose a timely and nice little look back on things, considering also very exciting news. You've been selected as a finalist for the Xander McDonald Award.
I'm very excited about the Xander McDonald Award. It's such a unique group of people, and to have made it to this stage where we're now alumni and part of the, Xander family is really cool. And I'm really excited to get to the Xander McDonald Summit and meet everyone and just build networks. All the finalists that are involved in the Xander McDonald Award are incredible people, so it's really cool to be considered in that group of people with them. Yeah, and I guess lucky there's a New Zealand winner and an Australian winner, so we don't have to compete against the Aussies for once.
What is next for you? I think one thing I noticed you talked about is an aspiration to maybe see the farm become carbon neutral or maybe carbon zero. Do you have kind of, what are your next kind of goals for the next wee while?
Farm goals are to, get to carbon neutral, get reticulated water across the whole farm would be a big one. There's a little bit more subdivision that we can do, but once the lucerne platform's in, we'll just have to have a reassessment of how we can improve from there. Conscious Valley, the 5-year goal, I guess, is to be, for Wellingtonians to consider the Conscious Valley meat as like their Wellington grown meat, and to be, I guess, the number one choice on people's minds when they want to either entertain people from out of town, have barbecues. They think, oh, we want to treat ourselves to some delicious meat. Let's get our Wellington grown meat onto the table.
Would you have any advice for other people, who might have been at a similar stage you were at 15 years ago, either just starting their agriculture studies or finishing them up and looking to enter the workforce?
Yeah, I guess you've got to take your opportunities, identify what you want to do, and just go for it and work hard for it, because nothing comes, well, for most people, nothing will come unless you work for it, and unless you have a sort of reasonable mindset of where you want to go and how you want to do it. So set goals, look back on them every 6 months to a year, see how you're tracking, have great mentors, and yeah, we're so lucky in the primary sector because there are like such a wide array of careers available to us. I think anyone who's looking to work in the primary sector, whether it's agriculture, horticulture, forestry, aquaculture, food is always going to be in demand, and there's always going to be careers for people who are willing to have a crack.
That was Hamish Best I was speaking to at his Oharu Valley farm north of Wellington. Those wanting to put his unique flavour theory to the test can find him down at Wellington's Harbourside markets on Sundays. Hamish will head to the Xander McDonald Awards in Queensland next month, alongside Megan Blom, who helps run Mills Bay Mussels in Marlborough, and Sarah Howe from South Canterbury, who co-founded Landify Limited. Good luck.
The nets are on in vineyards around the country to shield ripening grapes from hungry birds. Today, producer Sally Round is taking us underneath some of those nets to meet Fung Mei, who's busy checking the fruit in her Martinborough vineyard.
You getting? Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, here's better. Here, you can see the color. It's turning red a little bit.
That's a special time of the season, isn't it? When the grapes turn colour.
Yeah, they're turning colour at the moment. Quite tight. And yeah, it's very healthy. So the only varieties here is Pinot. In total, it's 4 hectares, but only 2 hectares planted. We got another 1.5 hectares we're going to replant this year.
It looks great. Let's just talk a little bit about how you came to be involved in the wine world, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, it's a long story actually, because I used to work for National Bank of New Zealand after I graduated from Massey University. Then I worked for another bank in China. After that, I feel I want something different. Because when I work for National Bank of New Zealand, every Friday afternoon, before we close our branch, we drink. So that's how I start to get to know wine at the beginning. And then I found I really love wine. And I went to a lot of wine regions in New Zealand. And I saw beautiful places and I saw nice people, And I thought maybe I can do something which is connect me, between China and New Zealand.
May liked the idea of being involved in one of New Zealand's primary industries. She fell in love with the Pinot Noir grape, met the right people, and found she had a bit of a knack at wine tasting competitions.
So I found, I have quite good taste for the wine.
You have a good palate.
Yeah, I think so. So I went to certificate study for the wine tasting, which is the WSET, which is the biggest wine education in the world. So I joined that course and I got level 4 advanced certificate.
Then another big step. 10 years ago, May made the decision to buy a vineyard in Martinborough, a Pinot Noir growing area in Wairarapa.
Yeah, it's a very different life compared to life I used to live in urban. So here is totally different and very, very quiet, very relaxed.
Do you get involved with any of the work in the vineyard?
Yes,
at all?
I do. Normally in harvest. So I will pick grapes and I used to do a little bit pruning, and I got my tractor somewhere, and I pick up grapes.
May is usually here to help at harvest time and works the rest of the time in Shanghai and Shenzhen, educating the Chinese market about New Zealand wine. Since 2014, she's been the agent for several organic and biodynamically grown brands from New Zealand.
At that time, Chinese doesn't really know wine. They don't really know much about white wine. They have no idea about varieties, and they think French wine is the most famous one. So they don't drink much, and so we did a lot of education for the market and to help people to know about New Zealand wine and Pinot, which is my favorite. And at that time, people doesn't know Pinot at all. So and after some years later, and people get used to know Burgundy Pinot, and they found, wow, it's so expensive. And then they come to New Zealand again, and they think New Zealand Pinot is very affordable, luxury. I think we get through the whole education curve.
The China market bucked the overall downward trend for New Zealand wine exports in 2024, growing in value by about 5% to $38 million. But our produce is up against Australian wine again. Now China's punitive tariffs on Aussie wine have been lifted. And there are other challenges too.
Tell me about the consumer of wine in China. What are they interested in, and how big a market do you think it is?
It's a big question. The total market, actually, the import value drops from 2018. 2018 is a peak. But now, 2024, they dropped nearly 60%.
Is that because of the COVID pandemic?
Not only, but also domestic one increased a lot. So it's booming now.
So they're producing their own wines?
Yes. Actually, Chinese made the wines from many years ago, very long time ago, but the quality is not very good. So we never saw much, high quality wines in the market. But after those 20 years, and we got a lot of young winemakers from overseas, and they came back to their hometown, and they set up their own small, wineries, and their quality is getting better and better. So, and the government really encourages domestic wine. So we got very intense competition from domestic wines at the moment.
So New Zealand wine is up against not only the re-burgeoning Australian wine, but also the local producers. Where are those local wines being made?
Ningxia is the most well-known place in the north of China, and they also got Xinjiang and Shandong, Shangri-La. Shangri-La is new wine region in China at the moment. I went there once and I tried some. Yeah, I think its quality is quite good, but they are still struggling about the balance of cost and the qualities.
What varieties are they planting?
Most of varieties are Cabernet Sauvignon, local varieties, Southland, and they got some Chardonnay. some growers is trying Syrah at the moment.
May is targeting younger customers with organic brands using influencers and bloggers on social media. The industry body New Zealand Wine Growers is also in on the trend, using New Zealand actor and vineyard owner Sam Neill to promote our wine in China via the social media platform Little Red Book.
What if you wanted to make the most unique wine? Something really special? Well, firstly, you find a verdant, fertile country with unblemished sunlight, pure fresh water, and just the right temperatures to grow fine, delicious grapes. You need special...
A lot of young drinkers, they got a lot of knowledge about wines because we did a lot for education and market. And so they know varieties and they know some regions. They even traveled a lot. And the other part of consumers, they don't really care about the brands. You know, older consumers, they just get some wines cheaper. I would say the middle class Chinese really focus on quality, and they are really focus on natural things, and they love the natural wine and biodynamic wines. So,
where are they drinking wine? We've heard that the restaurant trade has really suffered due to COVID in China.
True, that's true. Not only in China, it's everywhere in the world. Actually, most of the restaurants got challenged, but we still have some fashion restaurant opening. We work with quite a few bistro, which is a new trend in China. Normally, people used to go to very traditional restaurants and they put a lot of dishes together. But bistro is new trend in mainland China. So we got a lot of young people who come from overseas and they set up those kind of thing, and they sell wines with food together. It's not very big dishes, it's small and delicious.
Tell me about some of the people that are selling your wine, the so-called influencers on Little Red Book.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a new concept at the moment. And Little Red Book is like Google in China. We search everything there about lifestyles. If we want to go to travel or want to buy some food, or if we want to learn how to cook, if some people want to find some interesting wine, so we'll go to Little Red Book. And they got so many bloggers, and we just really look for it and to find the right one to promote our products. And we found quite a few, and we keep connect with them and send our products to them. And as long as they find your products interesting and they like it, and they are just become our wholesale. And they made the videos about your wine, and they talk about the wine. They educate people, their customers, their followers, and they teach young people how to drink the wine, how to taste, and the region, about the varieties, everything. And
I guess some of them have a huge audience, do they? What are the numbers like? How many people are they talking to?
I got one customer that got 500,000 followers, and but some only got maybe 50,000. But it really depends on their quality of their followers. Some bloggers really serious, really academic, and they got very high educated followers. And but some got lots of young people. They just want to try something cheap and interesting. Yeah, we try to explore this channel. So yeah,
it's the way to go in China when you're selling stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty useful, and it's new tools.
Feng Mei, New Zealand vineyard owner and wine agent in China, talking to producer Sally Round. With the help of one of her mentors, Larry McKenna, May now has her own wine label, Archana, named after one of the brightest stars in the sky. A star which can be seen in China as well as her vineyard here in New Zealand.
My name is Woodsy. I'm the maker of Woodsy Rockers. I'm from Taranaki. You are listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
Now we're heading to northern Southland with Cosmo Kentish Barnes. He's with Jodie and Blair Drysdale at Hopefield Farm in Balfour.
Jodie and I are third generation on this farm, so my grandparents bought it originally with my father. They bought it in, I think off memory, in the late 60s, about 1967 or so. And then they expanded the farm in 1988, I think it was. They bought another 155 hectares next door. So you were 320 hectares, used to be all sheep and a little bit of beef. Now we are largely arable, and tulips integrated into the farm as well as part of land we lease out to a neighbouring business that grows tulips. So yeah,
So tulips grow well around here?
Yeah, they're grown here. They're some of the best soils in the world for growing tulips, and they're grown, of course, in the off-season to Holland. So, yep, it's a valuable resource for them, our land is, and it fits well in our rotation as far as a break crop goes.
So this is lovely, fertile soil?
Very, yep, fertile, free-draining, very nice soil types. We're mainly Crookston by definition, with a little bit of Makarewa dipped in and a reasonable sized chunk of Kawiku.
Yes, and you were out in the harvester yesterday?
Yep, got a bit done yesterday and a couple of days prior to that we started wheat, so a little bit earlier than normal. We normally wouldn't crank into wheat till about the 10th of February, so just given the wet spring we had, and yeah, had quite a quick finish some of the second year wheat, so able to get into it slightly early, which is good.
Yes, and you don't only grow wheat, do you?
No, so a variety of crops, wheat, barley, oats, peas, Asian brassica called choy sum, what else in the past, sunflowers, oilseed rape, camelina, and of course the hemp and buckwheat. So yeah, all requires a little bit of planning.
When did you move away from sheep?
Oh crikey, I have to test my memory here. It'd be about 10 years ago. I'd say 2016. 2015, 16. We would have been pretty much all out of sheep to a degree. We moved out of them gradually over sort of 2 or 3 years.
Is that because of wool prices?
Probably more so due to our class of land and the opportunity around arable to make better gross income and net income on the land. So it became too good a quality land to have a large number of sheep on it.
But Jodie, you've still got a mob of self-shedding Wiltshires.
Yeah, we do, yeah. We've got, I think this year we're going to be lambing about 250 ewes, which would be pretty cool. We need sheep around the place just to tidy up the fence lines and all that sort of stuff. So we use them really as a management tool, not as a money-making scheme. And we graze dairy heifers for a friend of ours down the road. So there's about, I think, 120 dairy heifers. So we need mouths for the grassy areas that we can't put into crop, because we do have a wet area on the farm that can't be cropped into like barley and wheat. So the cattle are a really good fit.
How does it work? Do you charge like a weekly rate per heifer?
Yes, yeah, it is charged out at a weekly rate per head, and it works really, really well.
And what's your background? Where are you from?
I'm from Waikaka, which is about half an hour to the east of Balfour. I grew up there on a farm, a sheep and beef farm over there, and once I left school, I went to Lincoln University and I actually did a diploma in horticulture management. And then after I finished that, I worked at a couple of nurseries down in Invercargill and did the horticulture thing for a couple of years. And then I went into sales. So I ended up being a dairy rep. Yeah. And then latterly, I was a stock food rep.
And how did you guys meet?
Oh, we met in a pub.
Oh, we a pub. Unlike today where they meet on Tinder and stuff like that, we did it the old-fashioned way, met at a pub.
I'd hate to be in that world now.
And you've got children?
Yeah. Carly, she's in 6th form down at Southland Girls High School. Fletcher is 14. He's up at John McGlashan College. He's in 4th form. And Leah is in year 8 at Northern Southland College, which is the local college up at Lumsden.
And are they all quite farmy kids?
Oh, they do help out. Yeah, Fletch for the last couple of years has really helped out with harvest, so it wasn't really a great idea to send him away to boarding school full time.
No, not really, not when we just got him trained up.
And with the hemp side of things, Carly actually, she does a lot. She comes to the shows with me and she takes over some of the sales side of things and processes orders here as well, but she also runs the press when we're actually pressing the oil. So no, they've become, the return on investment's actually, it's worked out pretty good. Yeah.
Good to hear. And we will be going to look at your hemp crop later on, Jodie. But first, we're going to head over and check out the wheat, which you are going to harvest soon.
Yeah, so we'll go and have a look at some crops for you and show you what it is we're looking at and what we're harvesting.
Now we've just jumped into a side-by-side, which pretty much every farmer has now, don't they?
Yeah, look, they're great. I sort of reneged on buying one for a long time and wish I got it long before I did, so never look back once I've got a header side by side, that's for sure. They also become the ultimate gardening tool.
We can see your harvester out there.
Yep, so a Case IH combine 6140, so yeah, good machines, very simple machines, not as many moving parts as some combines, so very easy to maintain as well.
So how much would one of those cost new?
New now, you'd be for that around 750 to 800,000. So you'll go anywhere up to around about $1.3 million. Yeah.
And you've got a paddock of spring barley right beside us. That's looking great.
Yeah, it's not bad considering the spring we had. It won't be harvested for another probably month yet, so it'll be one of our last crops to harvest.
What will happen to the barley once it's harvested?
So all our barley and wheat all goes into stock food. It all gets processed into compound pellets, so they're all steamed and pressed, so that the animal gets full utilisation of the grain. So we supply Sargent Dan Stock Foods in Gore and Clark's Seed and Feed in Invercargill. So
it's all local?
Yeah, pretty much local. The further it goes, the more it costs the cart, and we have to pay the cartage bill, so closer the better.
Now we've stopped at a paddock, well, a couple of paddocks actually, which are a classic golden yellow colour.
This is first year wheat, and you can see like it's not ready to harvest yet. A lot of these heads are still sticking straight up. Being first year wheat, they're very big plump grains, so that's what we want to see in wheat, is nice plump grains. Unlike second year wheat, the tops can be a little bit shriveled, especially in a season like this where it's suffered in the wet a wee bit. So yeah, it is nice and golden.
So you're waiting for the heads to be a bit heavier, I guess?
Yeah, and a bit of rain and then a bit more heat helps them roll over. And as they roll over, it becomes easier to thrash as well. So if they're sticking up like this, it's hard to thrash all the grains out. You end up with a bit of a husky sample. So we'll just wait a wee bit on some of the stuff, but it will come in quick. Next week's looking really hot, so it'll change in a hurry.
You mentioned first and second year crops. Do you mean you'll plant wheat into this paddock next year?
Yes, so this came out of Choice and Asian Brassica for seed production, and we direct drilled the wheat into it, and we'll do a second crop of wheat behind this, whereas the one next door here is actually a third year wheat. So that's going to go into Asian Brassicas next year, and then some of the other paddocks beside it will go into peas.
So you have to do lots of crop rotation work with all the different crops you grow here?
Yeah, we manage rotation for lots of different reasons, economically, environmentally, and for disease. So peas are a really good break crop. Your oilseed rapes or Asian Brassicas, another good break crop. And then, some guys will do oats as well. So it just depends what you want to do, depends on your weed pressure. With oats, you don't have as good a grass weed control that you'd have in the likes of peas. So there's lots of different factors to weigh up when you're sitting down and sorting out your rotation.
Yep. And talking about the environment, have you had to change your farming system to fit in with environmental regulations?
I don't know that we necessarily changed it to fit in. We changed it because we wanted to, and because as you improve environmental outcomes, you improve your bottom line. So it happens a little bit by default. We've been very aware for a long time on our soils that they're quite leaky where nitrogen's concerned. So we have a big focus around nitrogen timing, around soil testing and around leaf testing to see where the plant's at with its nitrogen volumes or capacity, or how much it's going to need, a week or 10 days in advance, etc. So we spend a bit of time and money on measuring, also around precision with GPS and spreader that's got full sectional control, so you're not overlapping or overdosing parts of the crop. So there's a lot of investment goes into making sure we're trying to get it right.
After you've harvested this paddock of wheat, will you do a burn off?
This here will be baled. We won't burn these paddocks. This will go into peas in the spring, so we'll just retain that residue.
Yes.
But the autumn barley that we harvested 2-3 weeks ago was all baled and then just burnt the stubble.
And can you tell our listeners why you burn off the stubble?
Oh, look, it's very good. It helps with disease control. It helps with grass weeds and seeds on the surface of the soil, and it saves burning a lot of diesel as far as trying to work that residue into the ground. And for us on this land, if we were to to chop all the straw out the back of the combine and try and work it into the soil, it's actually worse for our nitrogen leaching than it is for burning. So burning's a really good tool in the basket, and we've got to be careful how we use that. And for our aquifers and our waterways, burning is a much better tool for us than incorporating the straw, which requires nitrogen for the biology to break the straw down, which then leaches. These are all things we've learnt very recently as part of our catchment group, so we've done a lot of science around these things. And so, we just continue to learn. There's that truck coming from a cattle beast, so we might head back to the cattle yards.
We can see the truck there.
And do that. Because this is just one cattle beast. It was a fundraiser for the Lumsden Community Pool.
How much money did you raise for the pool, for the Lumsden pool, from selling the steer?
I have no idea. He's probably going to end up being 500 kilos in the hooks. I don't know what the schedule is, probably around about $6 still, so $2,500, $3,000. Yeah, we're just getting to the yards now. Okay.
So where is the steer going to?
Lawnville and Invercargill.
The freezing works?
Yes.
Now here is the steer. Oh, he's a big boy, isn't he?
He's a little bit grumpy too, this fella.
He is looking grumpy. Was there an auction in Lumsden?
No, it's not. So it's not an auction. The local pool, they purchase calves and they put them out on local farms as a fundraiser thing. And he's just been here for a bit longer than we anticipated, but that's okay. And because he's a steer, he'll still reach really good money.
Yes, and the truck is heading off now with the steer. So let's check out your hemp crop.
Righto.
Just wandering this gate here. Yeah. You can smell like you brush up against the plant.
Yeah.
It's a strong smell. Now we are standing in a large paddock of hemp, and beyond the paddock we can see some steep hills.
Well, that is the famous Hokanui Hills, and they're actually looking quite nice at the moment with a bit of light rain falling in front of them. So Hokanui moonshine, which a lot of people around New Zealand would have heard of. That was done in those hills back in the day when they weren't meant to be doing it. So there's a lot of history based around the Hokanui Hills. And what else you can see, if you look directly north of us, basically, we would have, if it wasn't cloudy, we'd have Midome and the Coupler, which are near Five Rivers on the main road at Five Rivers. And look, Roxburgh's really only just over the hill to the northwest.
Yeah, quite a scenic farm, lots of lovely views all around.
Oh, it is. We're lucky, and I think we take for granted.
Now back to this crop of hemp, and the plants are quite spaced out, aren't they?
Yeah, so when they've got plenty of space, they tend to grow seeds all the way down the stem, which is what they're doing, which is nice. And these are males here that are flowering, so they'll pollinate shortly. And these are the females.
The females are, what, about 60 or 70 centimetres high?
Yeah, we don't want long stalks going through the combine. It tends to want to wrap around everything. So if they're short stems, they don't cause too many issues.
Jodie, why did you start growing hemp?
Oh, that was a brainchild of Blair's. So we've always wanted to grow or produce something that we could take directly to the customer ourselves, directly out the gate. Because commodities, you are always just a price taker. There's always a middleman that's sort of taking a clip. And we thought about a few different crops. We thought about garlic at one point. We thought about red meat was where it first started, as to whether we could actually grow our own meat and sell it via a website or through a butchery or something along those lines. And then Blair just happened to stumble on growing hemp, and there was just about to be a law change back in 2018 where it could actually be consumed by humans. Prior to that, it was actually could be consumed by animals but not by humans. So with the law change, we decided, let's just give it a go. So we planted our first crop, I think it was about the 10th of December 2018. We applied for our licence way earlier in the year. It took us about 8 months to get our licence through because it's through Ministry of Health. And there was a few hurdles to jump through with that. And then we planted with the idea, well, if it goes well, then that's awesome. If it fails, then that's okay as well, because by the time our licence came through, all the really good seed around the country had actually been sold, and you can't buy hemp seed without having a licence. So there's a lot of chicken and egg scenarios with it. So Yeah.
And so what do you do with the hemp?
So we harvest the seed and then we press it for the oil. So we don't do anything with the plant itself, with the leaf. We're not allowed to. All of that is very restrictive, and that's another whole license in itself. And we're not set up to do that.
So where do you make the oil?
So we have got a little facility in the middle of our yard, and we imported 2 presses from Germany. So they're Kernkraft, so they're KK40s, and they're a screw press. So we press the seed, let it settle for about a month, and then filter it off and bottle it. Or we've got oil away at the moment being made into capsules. There's a company in Christchurch that makes capsules for us for health supplement. And I used to make the hand cream just in the kitchen because our kids had eczema, but it got a wee bit out of control. So there's a company that works out of Invermay that makes the hand cream for us now.
Yes, and you've called your brand Hopefield Hemp?
Yeah, so Hopefield is the name of the farm, and it just naturally sort of rolled off the tongue. You don't have to guess as to what we do, really.
So how are things going?
Yeah, really good. Very consistent, a lot of returning customers as well. And I normally send out a newsletter once a month, and it's not necessarily what's happening with the hemp side of things. It's actually about what's happening on farm and, what we're up to as a family as well. So our kids are growing up with our customers.
Yes. And talking about your children, I'm going to record your daughter Kylie singing a song.
Yes, she's quite accomplished in her songwriting. She won the Gisborne Country Music Awards last year. She was actually winner and runner-up with 2 of her songs. So she's a pretty clever wee cookie.
I am back at the house with Kylie. Now, when did you first start playing the guitar?
Oh, I think it was when I was 11. So I'm 16 now, so about 5 years. And this is my guitar, my main one. I love it.
And as well as being a guitarist and singer, you're also a songwriter.
Yeah. So one of my songs, Revenge, got me into being a finalist for the NZCMA Songwriter of the Year Award. So that was a very cool experience. I didn't win, but it was very cool to be a part of something like that.
And Jodie was saying that you also help out on the farm, in particular with the hemp processing.
Yes, so I do most of the pressing of the oils.
Do you want to follow in your parents' footsteps and become a farmer?
No, not necessarily. I love the farm, I love it to bits, but it's not what I want to do either. I really want to be a paramedic. Yep.
Tell me about the song you are going to sing now.
So this is one of my favourites, Millionaire by Chris Stapleton. I just love the message that it brings, that money isn't everything and the people around you is enough just to live a happy and sustained life. They say love is more precious than gold. It can't be bought, no, and it can't be sold. I got a love enough to share that makes me a millionaire. I got a woman with eyes that shine down deep as a diamond mine. She's my treasure, so very rare, like Rich's song, a millionaire. When we ride around this old town in my beat-up car with the windows down.
Carly Drysdale there, singing Millionaire by Chris Stapleton. Cosmo was also with Carly's parents, Jodie and Blair Drysdale, at their Arable hemp farm at Balfour in northern Southland.
Well, that's it for the show this week. Thanks for joining us. Now, we love getting your feedback and ideas for future stories, so do get in touch. Our email address is country@rnz.co.nz. Links to photos and stories related to this episode can be found in the show notes or by heading to rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
You can follow and listen to Country Life wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed the podcast, we'd love you to give us a plug on social media or tell a friend about the show. Just click the share button in this app.
The stories today were produced and presented by Cosmo Kentish-Barnes, Sally Round and Janina Schwaneker. And in the studio production team today, David Knowles and Phil Benj.
Catch you next time.
Ka kite.